Hot Mics with Billy Bush. Our attention turns to Lindsay Clancy, who is on trial in Boston for the deaths of her children, whom she unalived. She admitted that. The prosecution has arrested Kevin Reddington, her defense attorney, who's had great success so far, will be taking over. Look, if you're not totally up to date on what's happening with Lindsay Clancy, it is the national conversation because it's a big question on women's health and if she should be held accountable for the most horrific acts against her children, what drove her to that. If you are not totally caught up, you will be by the time we are done. Here are my observations as 14 days are behind us in the trial. My heart continues to ache for this woman. That I want to say, first and foremost, I support her. And here are some observations. One, they are prosecutorially negligent in South Boston. Another open and shut non-investigation of a woman in the Boston burbs. Karen Reed, now Lindsay Clancy, with typically disastrous moves by this prosecution. The graphic descriptions that we have all been subjected to, and let's forget the jury has been subjected to by the medical examiner, by the forensic pathologist, of the unalivings, while a distraught mother is wailing in tears. The judge can't handle it. Nice older man. He calls for a break twice as this woman is wailing and wailing as these pictures of her children turned blue from asphyxiation are put up on the screen. It seems awful, like too brutal to handle. And you can see Lindsay's defense attorneys holding her hand. He's got his arm around her. And what appears before the jury are two sensitive older men, right? In the face of, brutal but unfeeling, mean prosecutors who are both women and witnesses. The medical examiner, the forensic pathologist, also women, as they try to communicate to the jury and thus, and which is 2/3 women, by the way, communicate to the jury that this woman, is evil personified. I don't know that that's playing because it feels like the prosecution is trying to break her. Break her. She is clearly already broken. The assistant DA, Shannon Buckingham, is wearing hair bows every day. Now she can't not wear them because it would be admitting that she's caving to public outrage over the fact that she is wearing these hair bows. This is a woman who in her opening statement said, Cora, Lindsay Clancy's 5-year-old daughter, Cora had just turned 5. She was sweet, silly, smart. She loved sparkly dresses and wearing bows in her hair. You don't see Big Red, Lindsay's defense attorney, Kevin Reddington. You don't see Big Red wearing a Postpartum Awareness Month, ribbon on his lapel. Stick to the facts, Shannon. Emotional manipulation is amateur hour, and it likely will backfire. I feel like this prosecution is going out of their way to lose the jury. The unforced errors are astounding. 3 jurors cried during the exhibits of the children's dead bodies, according to a cameraman for Law and Crime. Obviously, their goal is to get the jury to hate Lindsay Clancy for this, these horrible acts. Because of the unforced errors by the prosecution, Kevin Reddington, today, Monday, on day 14 of the trial, is arguing that the evidence presented so far is overwhelming that Lindsay Clancy suffered from a mental defect. He is also asking that the charge by the prosecution be reduced to second-degree murder. But, of course, he's asking the jury to find her not guilty of it for reasons of insanity. And he has been effective doing so, and he hasn't even presented his case yet. He is only cross-examined and followed up. My feeling is because popular opinion is totally conclusive that Lindsay was a good and loving mother who was suffering, I think the whole thing is going to backfire. I believe Lindsay Clancy will be saved by the internet, but who will love her and comfort her afterwards and for the rest of her life? I don't know. Her parents, her beloved parents, for whom a GoFundMe has begun. Second observation: psychiatry as a field needs a national audit in America. COVID was a disaster. These cookie cutter mental health apps are a dime a dozen now. They need regulation. It should be mandatory to be in person with a shrink at least twice a month, at least half the time. I think telemedicine should be circumstantial only when you need a quick little, when you need a doctor to call in a prescription. I don't know. When you need something quick and easy. But postpartum psychosis should not be handled only on telemedicine. Dr. Jennifer Tufts was a witness for the prosecution. She was terrible. I think, did more damage to the prosecution's case than anyone. She called herself an expert. She was 32 years old with 1 month experience on the job as a psychiatrist. Never met Lindsay one time in person when she began working with her. Just a month. She was a total and complete rookie. Altogether, they had 14 appointments on Zoom. And even though, by the way, she wrote deteriorating to describe Lindsay's condition at one point because it was one of the 3 options in the drop-down menu, right? That's all. You can't write your own words. You can't write your own. You have to just fill out the form letter that they give you when you become a psychiatrist, at this healthcare company. Unbelievable. By the way, Dr. Jennifer Tufts lives in the Boston area, and she sees patients in person in 2 different locations, one of them being Braintree, and I can't remember the other. But she could easily have said, come see me, and maybe brought in some experts. We all saw the show Shrinking, right? You watch Shrinking with Harrison Ford and Jason Segel, and all the shrinks that work at this place can talk to each other and confer and be like, and find the best possible path for this woman. Dr. Jennifer Tufts, whom you saw, she's lucky she's not on trial, even though she is, because she's certainly a target of Lindsay's civil lawsuit and also Patrick's civil lawsuit. They are separate. But as far as this woman goes, I do feel some bit of empathy because she was a kid, she was young, she took on too much, but her career, I can't think, is going to prosper from this point forward. Who's going to sign up this woman? What new patient is looking for her? Everybody knows her name and her face. Third observation is Lindsay Clancy killed her kids. She did. And I hate to say that. It's heartbreaking. But she lays out what happened in detail in the civil malpractice lawsuit that she filed in Norfolk Superior Court in January. She filed a suit against the psychiatrists, the nurse practitioners, the hospitals that treated her. All those witnesses you see up on the stand for the prosecution, they've all been named by Lindsay in her malpractice suit. On the day of the killings, Lindsay says she woke up with suicidal thoughts that persisted most of the day. In the afternoon, a voice began saying, "You should harm the children." Despite that, she gave them breakfast, and she took Cora to a pediatrician appointment, her oldest. Then she built a snowman with her kids in the backyard. She texted a photo to her husband, Patrick, at the time of the snowman, to which he responded, "You're a good mama." When Patrick left to pick up the prescriptions at CVS and the takeout dinner later on that evening, circa 5:30 p.m., a voice got louder in Lindsay's head saying, "This is your last chance. Kill the children so you can kill yourself." It was loud, it was demanding, it was repetitious. Lindsay describes entering a dissociative state, dreamlike state in which she felt her body was just acting, she says. She was merely watching herself do it. She was in an observational state. No sense of conscious control. She said, I lost all control. My body started acting without any control on my part. I was just following the commands, all action. This voice demanded action. And she says that she strangled each child with exercise-resistant bands, reportedly saying to them, go to God, baby. And then she attempted to take her own life, cutting her wrists and neck, ingesting a bunch of medication, and jumping about 20 feet from a second-story window, which left her paralyzed below the sternum. She admitted to this. So all these conspiracy theories that are calling, saying that Patrick, the husband, did it. I don't think he physically did it, but let's turn to that. Let's turn to his involvement. My fourth observation is Patrick Clancy was a deadbeat husband whose inactions made him an enabler to the crimes. My opinion. He is a little narcissistic weasel of a man. I know he is suffering his own loss here, and people have empathy there, but I cannot. Stereotypical toxic masculinity is a roided out, aggro, sexually aggressive, scary, violent guy. It can also be a weaselly, smarmy, self-absorbed narcissist, which is what I see when I look at him. The signs of his wife's postpartum psychosis, of her unhealthiness, weren't just there. They were in flashing neon lights. After the youngest child's birth, Callan, in May of 2022, Lindsay showed signs of hypomania. She was getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to run 6 miles or so. Then she did a Peloton session, and then she did aerobics, all before the kids were awake. Then by, late summer, she crashed into a severe depression, insomnia, 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night, anxiety. She scored a 23 on the Edinburgh postnatal depression scale, which just, all you need to know, indicates severe depression. She was put on Zoloft, the antidepressant, which left her awake for 48 straight hours with racing thoughts. It's that right there, to those practitioners and psychiatrists, is a majorly obvious sign that it is not working. It is competing with something else, which would be a mood disorder or bipolar, something like that. Providers kept cycling her through Ativan and Benadryl and Trazodone and Prozac and Ambien and Remron and Klonopin. And by the way, on Remron and SSRI, she reported the world felt unreal and that she became confused and forgetful. Stop for a second and just feel Lindsay Clancy's fear. How scary this is to be disassociated from your body and your mind and to be on all these drugs. She was in a panic to find the solution so she could care for her kids. Later, she was put on the antipsychotic drug Seroquel, after which she began describing hearing a voice saying, I will not be the same. I want to die. She told her providers she felt emotionless like a zombie. This woman called doctors. She went to institutions. She called a crisis hotline. They turned her away because she did not have a suicide plan. By mid-December, the hallucinations were reportedly constant, telling her she'd never be the same. The only option is to die. She disclosed thoughts of harming the children to her husband and her mom, alongside paranoid fears that people could also hear her thoughts and that the kids would be taken away from her. I mean, what more do you need? When I say in neon lights, it was obvious. Prosecutors pointed to a search on Apple Maps on her phone, plotting the distance and the time from their home in Duxbury, Massachusetts, to the two locations she sent her husband, CVS and a restaurant called 3V. They point to this as clear evidence of the defendant's thinking and intent to kill her children. like this was a premeditated plan. I'm sorry. Jumping from the second story of your house is not clear thinking, okay? It's virtually impossible to die from that, but you can definitely maim yourself. That is chaotic and dysregulated mania, is all that is. And days before days before the unalivings, she searched intrusive and hallucinations, okay? She sent Patrick the snowman photo hours before the deaths, where he responded, "You're a good mama." This was a woman desperate for his approval. And I don't know if he lorded that over her or not, but she was desperate to please him by taking care of these kids. And that feels obvious, to me. And she couldn't, like we talked about with Hayden Panettiere, she couldn't fulfill that core function of what it means to be a woman. And it just destroyed her. That umbilical cord connects to the mom. And this was destroying her. And she wanted his attention, his approval. In the 4 months leading up to the darkest day in Duxbury, Massachusetts history, Lindsay Clancy was prescribed 13 psychiatric medications, including benzos like Klonopin and Ativan and Valium, a mood stabilizer, Lamictal, which is helpful for people who swing heavily. And the month before the deaths, according to the nurse practitioner, Rebecca Gelada, who took the stand, she was prescribed an antipsychotic, Seroquel, which we talked about, and Remeron at the same time, an SSRI and an antipsychotic at the same time. Literally, this woman was on everything. This is abuse, okay? SSRIs, suicidal ideation is a common side effect. Zoloft, added side effect, sleep trouble. Who leaves this woman caring for 3 little kids? Big Red, Lindsay's attorney, is asking jurors to find Lindsay not guilty by reason of insanity, arguing she was in the throes of severe postpartum psychosis that was worsened by a cocktail of prescription drugs when she killed her kids. A diary note on Lindsay's cell phone, which was modified the day before her children were unalived on January 23rd. It said, "Medication stole my motherhood and my life. Prescription medication stole me from my own body." Prosecutors somehow are trying to claim that Lindsay's actions portray a calculated killer who was tired of taking care of her kids. No, she was tired of not being able to. So far, Big Red, Kevin Reddington, is annihilating these prosecutors, who I wouldn't trust to convince a jury that human beings have 2 legs. He is a likable character. He is a warm presence. The way he puts his hand on top of hers when these totally rookie prosecutors, even though they've been on the job for a long time, are trying to unnerve her. By the way, look at his face. I think Ed O'Neill should play Kevin Reddington in the movie of this trial. If Lindsay Clancy had not detailed her actions in her civil lawsuit and admitted to the acts, my instinct would immediately assume that her husband, Patrick Clancy, was involved, because some serious stuff does not add up. When the nurse practitioner, Rebecca Gelada, suggested that Lindsay might have underlying bipolar, based on the fact that she had a majorly bad reaction to Zoloft, she went into 48 hours of no sleep and hyperactivity. That is a huge tell. But her husband, Patrick, shut that down immediately in the one meeting he attended with his wife. "My wife is not bipolar," he said. And what did Lindsay do? Nothing. She demurred. I think he was controlling. How would he know? He is no training. How would he know? My wife is not bipolar. Did he just think it was a weakness? We're not admitting to that. I'm not married to a crazy person. He interjected himself in her care and impeded her diagnosis. Also, why did the nurse listen to this little bully? Some searches from Lindsay's phone. Kevin Reddington brought this up in court. Big Red was great on this front. The Massachusetts State Police Inspector was sitting on the stand, and he brought up some exhibits. He said, from Lindsay's phone was the search, how to slit throat to die. I mean, it could be her. Where is the carotid artery? She's a nurse, but okay. Maybe, didn't get to that part in nursing school. How to turn the airbags off on Kia Sorento, her car. Maybe her. She was going to drive 90 miles an hour into a wall. I mean, like Mackenzie Shirilla. Maybe her. And then this search. Can you treat a sociopath? Made 4 days before the children's unalivings. How is it not possible, at least, that that's not her inquiring about him? Sociopath, someone whose social behavior is extremely abnormal, interested in their own personal needs and desires without concerns for the effects of their behavior on other people. Here's what's true. Patrick Clancy went hiking in Costa Rica 3 weeks after his children were unalived by their mother, his wife, who is now paralyzed, in custody, and alone. Who does that? I need to go clear my head? Here's what's not true, even though it's been widely shared and circulating on social media. Not true that he and his girlfriend, now wife, Rachel Dennis, ran the Bermuda Triangle half marathon race 9 days before the deaths of the children. They did do that, but it was in 2026, not 2023. Look at the picture of him smiling with his arm around his new gal. Was she a new gal? Patrick moved to New York City 4 months after the deaths of his kids. He says he met Rachel Dennis, his shorter Lindsay lookalike, says he met her a year after their deaths. Where is that hotel lobby security cam footage that always seems to come out to conflict with a date that somebody gives? Wouldn't surprise me if one popped up, maybe a pub photo, sitting at some little bar together somewhere. On the night of the unalivings, on his cell phone, he's holding his cell phone at the 3V restaurant when he's picking up food. The internet believes he's watching his home cameras. Was he watching her on the lawn? People are asking. Her thyroid was crushed. Body temperature of 82 when she was found, and she was unable to speak, according to first responders. Yet, Patrick says she told him clearly and concisely, where are the kids? They're in the basement. I killed the kids. I unalived the kids. Then her Apple Watch is in the nightstand. But many sleuths believe that he was holding her Apple Watch at CVS, which would suggest the text going back and forth and the phone call he received from her there saying, go get the Pedialax, was actually him making the phone call. But I wouldn't read too much into that. Remember, Lindsay did fill out in her own malpractice lawsuit, and she'll get a chance to express that. I don't think it's the case. Also, this is true. August 23rd, 2022, 4 months before the unalivings. The middle child, Dawson, has a doctor's appointment at 9:45, and the youngest child, Callan, has one at 10 a.m. That same day at 9:40 a.m., 9:40 to 9:48, Massachusetts State Police Sergeant Kyle Paveo testifies that the Surface Pro computer belonging to the husband, Patrick Clancy, at home made these searches while Lindsay was at the doctor with her kids. Tom Hall, Hall's suicide, and suicide methods. Why are you looking up a country singer who died in 2021 because of suicide? And why are you looking at methods? Why do you want to know how your favorite country music artist took his life? Why do you want to know that? What I know he knew, because we all know it instinctively, he knew that she was a huge risk to herself and their kids. And he did not intervene in an emergency fashion. How can one conclude anything other than he didn't love her and that he let her suffer? God, is she suffering now? The prosecution, as we head into this week, needs to keep Emily Thorndike off the stand. Big Red needs to get her up on the stand. Emily was a social worker for 8 years at McLean Hospital, where Lindsay was on New Year's, 3 weeks before the unalivings. Now, Emily was not there during Lindsay's stay, but she worked there for 8 years. And she posted on TikTok something that caught the eye of Kevin Reddington, Lindsay's lawyer. And that is that the prosecution painted a very rosy picture of what it looks like to get care at McLean Hospital, which is, no one's trashing McLean. But on holidays, as you know, if you've ever been in a hospital on a holiday, the main doctor is probably in the Bahamas with his family. They have a rotating doctor, a doctor on call, and he could be any kind of doctor. He just has to make the rounds. She's not getting the care that they painted. So having Emily Thorndike on the stand is going to damage the prosecution's credibility after they painted such a rosy picture of care at McLean. The Commonwealth, which just rested their case, even though they're going to present a few more exhibits, they, I think, did an insufficient job. I think they made a terrible miscalculation that the majority women of the jury are going to be angry at another mom for unaliving her kids. I think these two assistant DAs who are prosecuting are gravely miscalculating what I think the majority of women feel. And that is, there has not been enough attention paid to the severity of postpartum depression. We're learning about, look what it did. It absolutely was the undoing of Hayden Panettiere. We're dealing with that right now. She couldn't take care of her kids. She felt nothing. Numb when Hayden Panettiere was taking her baby out of the bathtubs. She dropped her child and the child was in danger, but she felt nothing. Imagine that. Far too long, people have judged women for, not showing up when underneath it is a serious illness, and dumping 13 psychiatric medications on this woman and then saying she had a dedicated plan to kill her kids is just should not fly. I believe the internet will set her free. I believe the jury will come to the right decision. And I hope to God as I go back to the beginning here, there is a national audit on the psychiatric industry. I saw a psychiatrist when I was a kid. I'll just admit that, because I was constantly getting in trouble, doing things at school to get attention, I guess. I was, harming school property and playing little pranks that were harmful. And I think I was masking something that happened to me as an 8-year-old in the presence of in the temporary custody of a babysitter who I had a bad experience, and I think it made me act out. But my parents sent me to a psychiatrist, and I went sometimes at the height 3 times a week. In person. COVID came along and gave us telemedicine, which is fine for some things, like a hangnail. It is not fine for postpartum psychosis. okay? Which is clearly what Lindsay Clancy was suffering from. There needs to be regulation. Is this RFK Jr., while you're fixing our food and vaccination schedules, make sure you find time for mental health. I think this is a man who understands it. And some kind of overhaul, some kind of regulation and oversight that can protect women who feel like they are a danger to their kids. She did everything she could. She sounded every alarm. She reached out. She hospitalized herself. She called the crisis hotline that they give out at the end of every story on the news about somebody in this situation. She did everything. And I think her husband stayed in the basement on his little Microsoft job and was like, you take care of the kids and you'll be fine. You'll get through it. He was totally unsupportive. Every sign was there. So whether he intentionally enabled this total psychotic break or actually just did it out of numbness himself in the relationship or whatever, I'm not saying he did this. I'm saying he is an enabler. And I'm saying he didn't do enough. He didn't do anything. He totally let this woman down. This guy makes my stomach turn. He does. A dereliction of duty. No other way to put it. Lindsay Clancy's in a wheelchair. She is paralyzed from the waist down. You saying this is a plan she had to jump out her second-story window? No. She could have taken her life. She was in a manic psychotic state, and the only thing she could think of is what she did. It happened in the moment. It happened in a brief, scary, she was making a snowman hours before with her kids, okay? She was trying, even though she heard voices, she was trying desperately to be a good mom and be a good mom. That's all she wanted to be. Everyone says it, she was. The nanny says she was a great mom. Patrick's parents say, Patrick himself, imagine if he had the gall to say she wasn't a good mother in all of this. He's trying to skate by. Because I think he knows. I don't know how much he feels, but I think he knows. This guy went off to be with another woman right after, after the death. He should be just coming out of inconsolability, maybe now. Anyway, we'll be watching the trial. As things develop, we will do more. That's it for now on the Lindsay Clancy situation. You should be all caught up. Please hit subscribe and join the Hot Mics family on YouTube.